Hi everyone, good morning. Is my voice
Hi
audible?
everyone, good morning. Is my voice audible? Everyone, good morning. Is my voice audible? Everyone, good morning. Is my voice audible? Everyone, good morning. Is my voice audible? Good Is my voice audible? Good Is my voice audible? Good
Hi, is my voice clear now? Are you seeing, are you hearing still any echo? Is the voice fine now? Okay, all right. So let's get started. Okay, is my screen visible? So I'm sharing my screen. Guys, are you able to hear me? Are you able to see my screen? Okay, all right. Fine, let's get started. Yeah, one last cleanup activity from my end. Yeah, this is the first time that I'm doing live stream. So please excuse me if you happen to see some issues. All right. So yeah, welcome everyone. So my name is Haja, and today we are going to learn about GitHub Actions. So this will be a series of sessions, and this is the first in the series of sessions. In this session, we are going to learn what are GitHub Actions, what are workflows, and some terminology behind using GitHub Actions. And also we are going to see a couple of hello world kind of examples. So let me let me show the agenda. So this is the section 1 that which I was talking about. So we'll be going through today what is GitHub Actions, and we'll also see YAML. YAML is the file, a, a, a standard way of sending the data and receiving data these days. So we are going to see what is YAML and how we create YAML. And then we are going to see, as I mentioned earlier, GitHub workflows, actions, and steps. So don't worry, we are going to see these in detail. And and then we are going to see a couple of hello world examples, and then we'll wrap up this session. And in the second section, we are going to see what are events, um, how do we schedule these workflows, how can we filter based on certain criteria. And third section, we are going to see how do we set up environment variables, how can we set up secrets, how can we read secrets, what are expressions, what are contexts, and how can we use functions and also secrets inside context, and also how we can kind of do a conditional check so that only if a certain condition is met, we want to trigger a certain workflow. And in the fourth section, we are going to see what is a strategy, what is a metrics, and how we can containerize and basically the Docker images, how we can create and use those Docker images in the context of GitHub Actions. And in section 5, by the time we reach out to the session 5, we'll be having a good grasp of all the basic information that is required. So in session 5, we are going to create an end-to-end CI/CD workflow, and pretty much how a standard project is done. So we are going to create a master and a develop branches, and then we are going to carve a feature one branch out of develop one. So we'll do some kind of changes and then raise a pull request into the develop branch. Then we will see that a certain workflow gets triggered, and only once that workflow is successful, only then the changes in feature one will be automatically merged into the develop branch. And the same happens from develop branch to master branch. So we are going to see this end to end, and at the end we are also going to release the artifacts, similar to how we see the open source world artifacts these days, right? So you go to releases tab in the GitHub, and then we'll be able to download standalone jars or war files, and then we include those in our projects and we run those. So we are going to create similar sort of thing in session 5, so which is going to be a huge section. And then we are going to wrap up with section 6, where we are going to create our own GitHub Actions. And also we will host these GitHub Actions in the GitHub Marketplace. So we'll see what is GitHub Marketplace. Uh, and and then we are going to wrap up using self-hosted GitHub Actions. So in this section, I'm going to give a difference between GitHub hosted actions and self-hosted GitHub Actions. All right, so let's get started with the section 1. So as I mentioned, the agenda for today is I just wanted to keep it very simple so that we get a good grasp of what exactly is GitHub Actions and a couple of hello world kind of examples. Right. So yes, so this is the definition, the standard definition that is given for GitHub Actions by the GitHub team. So GitHub Actions enables us to create custom software development flows. So which is nothing but workflows, and which we can directly embed this into our GitHub repositories. So don't worry if none of this makes any sense. So we are going to anyhow see some examples. Then I'm pretty sure one will kind of revisit and see this definition. So again, what is a workflow? So a typical workflow is nothing but a sequence of steps, right? So you take a bank transaction as a workflow, or you create an insurance end to end as a workflow. So typically, a workflow is nothing but a sequence of steps, and in this context, it's nothing but a custom automation process, right? That can be set straight in the repository itself. That is the source code and the test code, where actually we try to perform small individual tasks, like we compile that as one step, verify the code, then we build, then we package, and we test and deploy and release that, right? So now coming to the GitHub Actions. Now this is not a very brand new feature. It's been there for about 6 to 7 months. It's been in beta for some time. Um, and this feature is available across all GitHub products except in the legacy per repository plans. So we don't need to worry because 99.9% of the people are not using those. So we should be good. So let's see a typical example of a workflow. So what exactly is a workflow, right? So earlier I said usually the way that we check in our code, right? So we push our code, so we make some changes in our local repository, and then we push those changes to the remote repository, right? And then in a typical world, what happens is that once we push, a certain event happens, which in this case a push event, and then a certain workflow. A workflow is nothing but, as I mentioned earlier, a sequence of steps. So you can say that we'll do a git clone into some virtual machine. We'll do installation of the required dependencies. Then we run the test cases to ensure that whatever the change that has been pushed into the repository is not disturbing the existing functionality, right? So workflow is also the same. So we'll come and revisit this, but I'll just read through these definitions for now. But again, as I mentioned, once we go through the examples, once we go through a hello world kind of example, we should be able to understand all these terminology. So we can revisit this, and then we can go through that again. But just for the sake of letting you know that there are these terminologies out there with GitHub Actions. So runner is one such terminology. So runner is nothing but it's an application that runs a certain job from your GitHub Actions workflow, right? Now these runners can be run on hosted machine pools, which is nothing but the Git hosted. So GitHub provides us a certain amount of machines, so which we are going to see that. And also, if we do not want to use GitHub hosted machines, but we want to use our own virtual machines or our own physical machines where we want to run the code, right? We want to verify, build, package, test, and then deploy into the next environment, something of that kind. Then we ideally in a enterprise level, we don't want to have this code residing outside our firewalls, right? Or outside our networks. So for that reason, we can create our own self-hosted environments. So runner in this case acts as an interface between a GitHub file, a GitHub Actions file, which is nothing but a simple YAML file, and our machine, either our machine or GitHub hosted machines. Now, what does so sorry, this is not self-hosted. This should be GitHub hosted machines. So what comes as a default with GitHub hosted machines is tools like pip for Python, npm for Node, Git for cloning, and so on, and few other tools as well. So you can visit this link after this session. I'll be sharing this document as well. So you can go through this link and see what all other available default softwares are available with the GitHub hosted machines. So let's see. So we'll be seeing what is YAML, right? In the as I mentioned earlier, so we'll be seeing what exactly is in YAML, right? So YAML is pronounced as yet another markup language. It's just the name, but in reality, it's not a markup language. So it's more like a human-friendly way of sending the data in a serialized fashion, right? So this can be used across all the programming languages, and we can treat, if you are already aware of JSON, so you can say that YAML is kind of a superset of JSON. Now, where is YAML used mostly? So most of the times it is used as a config file, and also in storage and as data files. So here is a small example. So you can see that a simple XML that I have on the very left side of this table. So with a menu and a pop-up and three menu items. So in the same can be represented in JSON in this format with angular brackets. And coming to YAML, it's pretty straightforward. So we call it as key value pairs. So we are going to see a demo in the next slide, right? So the development environment that I have for YAML is that I'm going to use Visual Studio Code. You can use pretty much anything. You can even use Sublime or even a simple notepad also. But be very careful because the YAML requires proper indentations. So I'm going to use a couple of extensions in Visual Studio Code. The first one is YAML extension itself, and the second one is YAML to JSON extension. Right, so let's look at a quick demo. So let me open the Visual Studio Code here, and I have already created a file to save some of our time, right? So the first couple of key value pairs that we are seeing here is called as scalar data. So these are keys and values. So if you are already aware of JSON, then in JSON we see that we give either in single quotes or double quotes, right? Most of the times it's in double quotes. But here you don't need to specify that. So this is how we give the key value pairs, right? So let me do each one individually. And before going there, so let me show the two extensions which I mentioned earlier. Okay. Yeah, the two extensions that I mentioned earlier. So the first one is YAML. So if you search for YAML, you come here. So I have installed this YAML already. So you can just, with one click, you can install this. So it will help us in indenting properly, and also giving us any errors upfront. And the second one is YAML to JSON converter. So this is not mandatory. This is only for the purpose of understanding here. So the second one. So this converts the YAML file to JSON file. So straightforward. So those are the two things that we require. And to be able to use this, what I'm going to do now is that let's see one by one. Okay. So these two things that we have, the name and degree. Okay. So now let me open the palette window. So for that, I'm on Mac operating system. I will say Command Shift and P. So this will trigger this particular window to be opened. By default, you might not be getting these two options. So for that, you can just press paste and search for YAML. So what we will be using is that convert section or document. So we want to convert this document to JSON. So once you click that, so you can see that this is how it is represented in JSON format. So as I mentioned, it will be in curly brackets if it's an object. If it's an array, then you will be having in square brackets. So you'll be having name and key and value pairs in double quotes. right? So let me come back here and right. So that. So we'll come back to this in a moment. So list is denoted in this way. So you create a key and then you can have list of items. So you just give hyphen and then a space. And I cannot have it like this. Okay. So it has to be properly indented is what I said. If I hover on this, it will say end of the stream or document separator is expected, right? So it has to be properly indented. So if I indent it further, then this will be treated as a child of this. Okay. So indentation is very important in this. Okay. So that's for the list or collections. And coming to another way of using the list. So as I mentioned earlier, so sometimes what we require is that for a specific uh, we want to have an object as a list, right? So here we can give this entire thing belongs to this item, right? We can also specify it like this as well, if, of course, with proper indentation. Okay, so we can even specify it like this, or we can specify it like this as well. So it's up to us. We have a couple of options there. Okay, so the next thing is um, let's say that we have multi-line text that needs to be displayed. So we can use a greater than symbol and then we can specify it like this. But the thing here is that only in JSON, only in YAML, we are displaying it like this. But once we convert this into JSON, we'll be seeing that this entire thing will be printed in one line, ending with a new line character like this. Okay, but if we want to preserve the multi lines the way that we are typing here, then we need to use a pipe symbol. Okay, so that's the main difference. And one last thing, uh, of course, this is not something that we are going to use, but this is a YAML feature, so I just wanted to introduce it here. Is that let's say that we want to reuse a data at a certain place in our YAML file, right? In this case, let's say my permanent address is in Hyderabad, Telangana, but I want to use this. Um, yeah, it's for a readability purpose, Prakash. I just wanted to show because a lot of people are aware of JSON, so I'm just converting it. But with GitHub Actions, we'll not be doing these conversions. So I just wanted to show for readability purpose. I mean, in fact, YAML is more readable if you see compared to JSON. Okay, so yeah. So let's say that if I want to use this permanent address in some other place, right? So what I will do is that I cannot use this key directly. So I cannot say, let's say for address in the places that I have lived, I just want to use this permanent address. So I cannot just copy this permanent address and I cannot use it like this. Okay, it's not possible. It's not a valid way of using. So the valid way of using it is you give ampersand and then some variable name. So you can give pretty much anything. You can even give like this also. You can give permanent sorry. You can just copy this permanent address like that and reuse that. So that is also valid. Okay, but it has to be appended with an ampersand symbol in the at the place where actually we are defining this as a variable that we want to use in some other place within this file. And then while using it, we just give asterisk and give the same name. Okay, so we can give this for one value, and also let's say that if we want to use a collection of values, like in this case hobbies, I'm saying these are my default hobbies, right? And these are the hobbies. My hobby might have changed when I have started living in Hyderabad. So one of the hobby that I might have developed is football, apart from these hobbies. So we can append it like this. Okay, so what it will do is that in hobbies it will add all these hobbies, and along with that it will also add football as well. Okay, so now let's see converting this into a JSON. So you can see that we have converted to JSON. So permanent address. So you see that permanent address Hyderabad, Telangana. So here if you see, we have converted, we have reused this, right? And also the same is with hobbies. So we have reused the hobbies. So instead of copying and pasting the same hobbies in the YAML file, we have defined this as a variable. We have given an ampersand variable name and used it as asterisk variable name. Okay, and then it got appended with another value football. If you come down, so we have a couple of things here. So as I mentioned earlier, so in YAML, you see that we have put this line in multiple lines, right? But here you can see that it's not preserved, right? It comes in only one line. But if you see about me, we have put it in two lines. So that's the reason why it has appended \n, that is new character, new line character, right? And the same with the second line as well. Okay, so let me go back. So this is what I was talking about. So in two lines we have, this is preserved. So if you want to preserve anything exactly the same way that you have written your YAML file, then use a pipe symbol, or else you can go with if you want to represent more number of lines, in more number of lines in the YAML file, but you don't care about preserving it, you can input it here. All right. So that's all about that is all that we require. Of course, there are a few other things with YAML, but not required for us. In fact, actually, we are not even going to use this variable that which I have defined earlier here, right? So that's all for with respect to YAML. I just wanted to give a quick intro. Now let's see the first workflow. Okay, so to be able to create a workflow, what we can do is that we can, let's say we go to GitHub. So to save some time, I have already created a GitHub Actions here, so which is the same whatever that you are seeing here. Okay, so what I have is a simple README and test.yml test.yml file, then a couple of folders. Okay, the same that which you are seeing here. So now what we are going to do is that initially when we create a repository, you will not be having this .github/workflows. So what we need to do is that we need to create .github folder and inside that workflows. But since I already have that, I don't think it will allow me to create, right? So it's not allowing me to create that. So this is manually creating workflows or actions. Okay, so we are going to see a simple action today. So what I'm going to do is that let me delete these actions here. Okay, or else let me keep those actions there. It's okay. So what I'm going to do is that I'll create a new action file and I'll call this as YAML. So be very careful. This test.yml is different from this test.yml file. Okay, let me close, or let me rename this so that there is no confusion. Okay, so a pretty very simple actions file that we can create. So the very first attribute that we can um, is it okay? Is it gone now? Shrikant Reddy, is that fine now? Okay, all right. So let's create a simple action now. So what we can do is that, see, whenever I'm typing here, so you can see that you press control space, you'll be getting the default options available at that particular point in time, right? So, but if I come to here and if I press control space here, I'll not get those suggestions. So I'll get only the GitHub action suggestions only when I'm inside this .github/workflows. Okay, so make sure that sometimes you might be thinking that, okay, why is it not showing me the options available? So you need to be inside that GitHub/workflows. Okay. Now what we are going to do is that let's say hello world GitHub Actions. Okay. So that is the name that we have given. So it can be any random name that you can give. Now the next thing that we need to give is yeah, for some reason didn't allow me. Okay. So the next one that we will be giving. Okay. Yeah, then the next thing that we are going to specify is the jobs. Okay, so once you press enter, by default it will indent with a couple of spaces. So 1, 2. Okay, so you can see that there are dots also. So that's a default. Then we need to specify, we need to give a name. Okay, so what we can give is that we can specify something, a random name as first job. And here when you press control space, you'll be getting all these options. So what we need to specify first thing is that where we want to see this particular job running, and for that we got a lot of options available. So GitHub team provides 3 different operating systems. One is the Ubuntu, the second one is Windows. They also give us free Mac operating system as well, but there are limits which I'm going to show. So if you press control space, you'll be getting all these options. Then there are a couple more options available. Matrix OS, Matrix coming with different strategies, which I have mentioned earlier, we are going to see later. And then self-hosted, so which we are going to see in the last session of this series. So for this, I'll be using Ubuntu latest. So please ensure that you do not run too many things, on this. Just for learning purposes we can use, because these are the actual resources that GitHub team is giving, and mostly for open source projects. So if we happen to use or run unnecessarily a lot of random jobs, then the very important jobs that people are running for open source projects, they might be queued, okay, and they might get delayed. Right, so let's come back. The next option is that we have to specify steps. So there's a default step, so which I don't want. So you specify hyphen and then give a name. So I'll say hello world, and then if you press control space, you get a lot of options. ID is something we are going to discuss. We can specify environment variables. We can give a specific condition, a condition that only when met, you can say that this step should run. You can specify different kinds of shells, which we are going to see in some minute, in some time. uses, we are going to see this, by default, the jobs are run in parallel. But if you want to make a certain job dependent on a previous job, we can see that also. So with is nothing but if you have a certain action and that action requires inputs, then we can give that. So there are a few other things. For now, let's not be concerned. Let's just run echo hello world. That's it. This is a very, very simple. Why it is showing error? Name of your I'm just seeing. Oh, okay, my bad. Actually, after name, what you need to specify is that when this has to be triggered. Okay, so the options that you have got are all these options. So you can trigger, you can have this in array. You can put it like this. For now, we can say that we want to trigger this on push. So you can have it inside an array, or you don't need to specify anything inside array. Okay, for now I'm just leaving it. Now when we push this, what should happen is that it should trigger this workflow to be run, and it will first get hold of a latest Ubuntu VM, and then it will run inside that Ubuntu echo hello world. We should be able to see this output. Okay, so let me push this. Yeah, let me maximize that. Okay, let me say git add actions. Yeah, I'm just typing. Are you able to hear me now? Yeah, I'm just adding this file, whatever that we have created, to the staging area. So, readme test.yaml. Sorry, my bad. I was thinking something. Okay, fine. I'm just going to add now. I just added to a staging area. Yeah, we can handle conflicts with YAML. So if you do any mistake, there are within the code editors, it has got enough intelligence these days and intelligent these days that will give you error. If you remember earlier, I missed this one, right? And then it was giving an error. So it has got that intelligence. Right now, I'm committing this change. Now, yeah, now my local branch is clear. So now let me push it. Okay, so due to the remote contains work that you do not. Oh, I think I have made some changes. Okay, now let's go and check into the actions tab here. Oops. Okay, so here we can see that hello world GitHub Actions is what we have created. So if you click on that hello world GitHub Actions, so we should see that yeah, it has already completed. So let's click on this, and first job is what actually the name that we have given for our job. Okay, so when you click on first job, so you'll be seeing 3 or 4 steps. So the first step of setting up the job and completing the job is taken care by the GitHub, so we don't need to worry about those. So if you expand this, so here you can see that what operating system. So it has given us Ubuntu long-term support 18. Okay, but the important thing for us is this step, the hello world. So if you come here, this is the name of the step we have given as hello world, right? And here you can see that this is the step name, run echo hello world. So if we expand this, so you can see that here it displays what is the command line, what is the command that we were trying to run. So we were trying to run echo. Okay, the default bash, the default environment that is provided for Ubuntu is bash, is a bash shell, right? That's the default shell. If we want to change that shell, which we are going to see in a few minutes, right? So for Windows, the default shell would be PowerShell. And if we want to use a bash, then it will look for a bash shell. So the bash shell is not available by default in Windows, but if you are having Git installed, then Git comes with a Git bash. So that Git bash would be used if you run echo hello world in the Windows, so which we are going to see. But here let's not be concerned about that. So we are saying echo hello world, and now the output is hello world. Right now, if you see the entire thing, we did not have our own machine, right? This entire thing was running inside an Ubuntu operating system, a virtual machine Ubuntu operating system located with GitHub, right? And this is what we call it as GitHub hosted runners. And let's say that if we want to run this particular echo hello world in our own machine, then that is what we call it as self-hosted runners, which we are going to see at a later point. That shouldn't be a big deal. It will take a few minutes to set up for sure, but that entire thing you can automate as well. So this is a simple hello world example, right? And now let's see, as I mentioned earlier, so GitHub operating systems. So earlier we have seen Ubuntu so far, but it also comes with a couple more, as I mentioned earlier. One is Windows and the second is Mac operating system, right? So we are going to see those shells also. So now so this is Ubuntu. Let's leave it like this. So we have to release the GitHub VM. No, it will default be cleaned up. If you see this complete job, it will see, you can see that cleaning up on process. So it will clean up automatically. So we don't need to worry about that cleaning process. So setting and cleaning up of the virtual machine is already taken care for us. So next one, let's say we want to create Windows job. Okay. So now we'll say that it should run on Windows latest, and oops, and now let's specify hello world on Windows. Let's say this one, hello world on Ubuntu. Okay, so we can say, so I'm not a PowerShell guy, so let me take help of these PowerShell commands. So get location. So I'm just going to run get me the location. Okay, so by default it should help me get the location, but now on Windows with we'll say default shell, and that is nothing but PowerShell. Now we are saying the next step that we want to run with git bash. Okay, so we can specify. I'll again say hello world. Let's see, hello Windows world. Okay, let's say here hello Ubuntu world. But here we need to specify what is the shell. Okay, so for that, if you come to this, yeah, so this link which I am going to share as well. So here you can see what are all the supported shells for each platform. So Bash is supported across all. The default shell on non-Windows, right, is SH. And PowerShell, as I mentioned, the PowerShell core. Okay, and Python can be executed across all. But if we want to use how to get okay, I got a question how to get from Ubuntu agent when something goes wrong as a say after the job. Yeah, you'll be getting logs, right? You'll be able to see the logs, this entire logs. In fact, actually, there they you can even put a debug also. You can put a debug also. Yes, we can set up GitHub repositories. You have two options. One is GitHub private repositories, and the second one is GitHub Enterprise. So for GitHub private repositories, very recently, I think 2 or 3 days back, GitHub has announced that you can have now you can have for not just open source GitHub projects, but also private repositories of GitHub, unlimited number of contributors, right? That is one thing, and that will help us create unlimited GitHub repositories going forward privately. Okay, so logs you can see here. If you see here on the right side, currently it is not showing, but when the job is running on the right side, we can see, you know, is a place where actually we can download. See, for example, here, if you want to download all this that is showing, you can say download log archive. Okay, so you can download this. If something goes wrong, then you can send it to the concerned person. If I open this one, so here if I go inside this, so this is the job that which we are talking about. So if I open this one, for example, right, so these are the logs. If something goes wrong, you can debug very easily. So either you can debug over here, you can even see that there is a search log also. So let's say that if I want to search with world, right, we can see, and also it will show how many occurrences of that particular character or word. All right. Yeah, I don't know where we were. Okay, yeah, so we are here now. So I was showing, so coming to billing in a couple of minutes. So yeah, so these are the things that we can specify. You can specify bash. In our case, we want to run this on bash shell, right? So there you go. So this is on Windows. Now let's say that I want to run a Mac operating system. So I'll say Mac job. So by the way, this is the name. This name is, you can give any random name. Okay. So now I want to run it on Mac latest. Okay. And pretty straightforward. What I'm going to do here is that I think earlier I have created this one, so I'll just copy and paste from here. I'm going to get system profile information. So I need to specify some name. Get system profile information. Okay, and then we want to run this. So I just want to run the system profiler, and this will output us what operating system it is, and some other meta information. Fine. So we have created a simple YAML file now with three different jobs, right? So this is the first job, this is the second job, and this is the third job. Very interestingly, if you see here, yeah, which I'm going to first let me add and push it. Oops, sorry, I specified GitHub status. Should be GitHub commit, right? Okay, now oops, git push. Okay, so while that is doing, so we are here. So go to GitHub Actions, and this is the file GitHub Actions, new actions. So I have clicked this, and you can see that it has already ran two, and it is currently running the third one. So the first job which we have already seen. So let's see the running job in the Windows. Yeah, Windows is slow here also, right? So here, if you see, we just wanted to see the uh, current location. So what is the current location? So this is the current location inside that particular machine. Okay, and then we have also ran another step, right? So where we have specified we don't want to use the default shell, but we want to use a bash shell, right? So here we have specified echo hello world Windows world. That is what it has done. Interestingly, if you come to the Mac job, let it open. It's a little slow from my end. So if you come here, so click on this. So if you expand this, this is what we have ran, right? System profiler and so on and so forth. So it has specified all the information that is there for inside that particular machine. Now these are the kind of hello world examples that I'm giving. So tomorrow, what are the actual use cases, for this, right? So the actual use case for this is that, let's say that you have a master branch, you have a develop branch, and then you have created some feature X branch. Now in feature X branch, you develop all your code, right? And then you say, when I push, right? When I push, what it has to do is that it has to, because that this is a new brand Windows or Mac or Ubuntu machines, what you need to say is that first you will say git checkout, right? And for that, these are called as actions. There are some default actions which we are going to see in the next section, right? So there are default actions. If we want to create our own actions, we can create similarly how we are creating it here, right? These are pretty simple, damn simple examples which we are seeing here, but it can get more complicated and more complex depending upon your use case, right? So first thing what we need to do is in that machine is that we need to say we need to first check out that project. Then we need to say if it is a node project, then you say npm install. which will install all your dependencies. There could be a case where actually you might have to set up environment variables. You can set up environment variables also. And once it has you have installed the dependencies, you might have to build the project, or even before that you need to verify whether the content that you have written is properly formatted or not, right? You can check a formatter, right? If it is Java, you can run PMD to see that everything with respect to the coding standards and everything is in place. And then you can build that, you can package that, you can test as multiple jobs, similar to how we have shown here. So each step you can specify, or you can split it into different jobs, right? You can specify one as build here, you can specify this as package, right, or verify, and then you can specify this as package, and then you can have another job as test, right? So pretty much everything you can have in one single file. Now that is not all, right? We are just touching the tip of the iceberg here, right? So here we are saying only for push. You can have it for pull request. Tomorrow if the job fails, right, you might be running this job. When the job fails, you can automatically create an issue, right? You can create this YAML file in such a way that when there is an issue, then automatically create an issue. Not just there, you can even automatically assign that issue to a particular person, right? And that is the use cases are unlimited. I can go on and on and on and on like this, right? So the entire SDLC lifecycle, you can bring it onto the GitHub Actions. Okay, so let me take some questions. I see that there are a few questions here. So in the place of hello world in name, okay, can we mention GitHub link which contains other applications code? So AH, I'm not sure which one you are actually referring to. Can you let me know which line you are referring to and what do you mean by GitHub link? Okay, yeah. Hi Lakshmi, welcome back. Just trying to understand a practical use case. I have made some changes to my code, and once I do a pull request, I can create actions to run some unit tests. Exactly. See, Srinivas, it's not about only unit test cases. So we can put the entire SDLC lifecycle in a single YAML file, right? So we can get rid of Jenkins. We don't need Jenkins here anymore, right? We don't need Azure pipelines. We don't need, sorry, Azure DevOps is not required. We don't require AWS pipelines, right? The code pipelines are not required. Similarly, if you are using any other, you don't require Bamboo, you don't require Travis CI, you don't require Circle CI, nothing. This YAML file would be enough for us to act a complete CI/CD infrastructure. Okay, so this is like an alternative for, yeah, exactly. Yes, this is not just a simple alternative, but an alternative where actually the code will be residing, this YAML code which I'm showing you, right? This actions code will be residing along with your GitHub project itself. Okay, so at this point, this is only available for the GitHub projects. So it is not available outside GitHub projects. So let's say that if you have your project in GitLab, at this point, you cannot have this triggered from there. So maybe in the future, I'm hoping that there will be some kind of connectors or some kind of plugins or add-ins that could be provided. But at least for at this point in time, there are no such plugins or extensions. Can you elaborate a little about which dependencies we should have, as you mentioned? Lakshmi, what exactly do you mean by dependencies? Okay, cool. So yeah, so let's go back and see how far we have come up. So this one which we have covered. So we have taken 3 operating systems. We have seen default shells. I mean, of course, in Mac operating system, we have not seen the default um, the default shell, but even Mac is having bash as default shell. If you want to use some other PowerShell core, so you can even have that as well, right? So now let's look at as I mentioned earlier. So this is something that we are creating now, right? This entire thing is something that we have created now. So in YAML, you mentioned after we have all the dependencies, then we can push in GitHub. Um, you mentioned, yeah. See, YAML is nothing but kind of you can think it as an alternative for your entire CI/CD, including infrastructure for CI/CD. Okay. So what I mean to say by dependencies is that once you have written YAML file in such a way that it reflects your sequence of steps for your CI/CD pipelines, including your continuous deployments, right? So continuous deployments I have not tried yet. Continuous integration and continuous delivery is something that can be done seamlessly. I don't see a reason for continuous deployment to be that difficult. Even that should be fine. If time permitting, after the session 6 we'll be having, maybe we can have one more session covering some miscellaneous concepts as well. All right. So now let's see a JavaScript hello world action. So I'm not saying, uh, yeah, I'm not saying a hello world workflow here. I'm saying hello world action. So there's a difference between these two. So here is the link for that. So actions is an organization that is created by GitHub. So inside that, so this is a logo. By the way, this is a logo for GitHub Actions. Okay. So GitHub team has created as a lot of actions here, and one such action is hello world JavaScript. So similar to how we, if we want to write a hello world program in Java, so we create a class and then we say we create a main method. Inside that we say sys out hello world, right? If it is Python, then we say print hello world. If it is Node, then we say console hello world, right? Console.log hello world, something like that, right? And similar to that, similar in those lines, I'm not saying exactly, but similar on those lines, we have hello world actions. Okay, so let's see how we can use hello world actions. Pretty straightforward. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create another file. So I'll say hello world js actions.yaml file. Okay, so now I'm going to give it a name, hello world javascript action. Okay, and these are, by the way, this on is called as events, and right now I'm only telling you push, pull, and all these, right? But if you see in Jenkins, we give cron jobs also, right? Schedulers, what we call it as. So we want to run it on a specified time, right? We want to say, let's say that we want to run a particular job every alternate day at 12 p.m., something like that. We can even schedule these jobs also. Right now it is running immediately, right? But we can even schedule that based on these events. So on is one such event. So which we are going to see at a later stage in this series. Okay, so for now, let me say on push. I'm fine with that. So jobs, uh, I'll say hello JS action. Okay, I want to give a name, hello JS action. Oh, this should be One second. Sorry about that. Well, if you copy it to save some time here, then we can modify things. So I want to run this on Ubuntu because Ubuntu is the cheapest, right? And then I'll say hello JS. Okay. Or else what we can do is that you can just say, so you just give it a name here, hello JS action. And to be able to use this action, right, what we need to do is that we need to say these actions and this entire thing we need to copy. And that is what we are doing here. So we are saying uses instead of run. Okay, so this is the input which we are giving, and this will be the output of JS action. Uh, Sorry, one second. One second, guys. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. Okay, yeah, sorry about that. Okay, so what we are trying to do here is that, so first let me explain here. Home to greet is an input for this. So in this example, I'm just giving my name. So let's look into this action. Okay, so this is an action which requires one input. Okay, so who to greet is the input. So whatever the default word is world. Okay, and whenever we give any specific text here, it will override the default word. The output that it is giving is time. Cool. So what we are doing here is that we are saying we are giving some name, and then we are saying we are using these actions and the name of the repository, and we are specifying at master here. So we don't need to specify master also. There are a couple of ways we can specify the release also. If we go to releases here, so you'll see v1 here. So instead of master, because master branch might be changing frequently, so I don't want to depend on, so you can give either a master branch here, this is the tag which I have given, or you can even specify the commit ID. So commit ID is nothing but SHA, right? SHA. So that is all that we have given here. And the next thing is that we have for now set it up. Right now we need to run this run JS action. So what we will do here is that, where is it now? Okay. So what I'll do is that I'll just echo the output. Oops. Okay, so this is how you will echo the output. So you will wrap this inside double quotes dollar. This is the standard way of outputting. So how we can access whatever that we have input here is that we'll say, you can say it is defaultly coming, right? Steps it has come, and we need to specify a certain ID to be able to use this. Now I'll say hello. So I'll say hello dot. You can see that it is having outputs here. Okay, and in that outputs, what is that we are specifying is time. That's it. Okay, so this is how we can use this. So this is a simple hello world action. So let me explain this again. So earlier we have used different Windows operating system, Ubuntu and Mac, right? So we had different steps there. So this action is having two steps, and this is what we call it as action. Okay, this is one action, and this is how we are using that action. So here we are specifying. This is similar to this one. You can say something like import asterisk as some JS from certain module. Or if you are in Java, you can say um, import certain method, right? Static, you can do static import or normal import. So similar to that, what we are doing here is that we are saying uses. So use this library and with this input, okay, and then this action will result in an output which we are capturing in the next step. And how we can capture is using these steps. So inside steps we are using, so we need to give a certain ID to be able to access the output from this. So we are giving an ID as hello here. Okay, now we can get hold of whatever the output that this action will trigger, and that output here they have specified as outputs. Inside that outputs object is time. Again, that is what they have mentioned here as time. So this is the time that we have greeted this particular this particular string. Okay, so now if I commit this again, wow, it's taking forever. Okay, hello world US actions. Yeah. Okay, now let's push. Now we should see, we go here. Now we should see hello world JavaScript actions is what we have created. So here, this is the file hello.js action, right? So here you can see what is it that we have given. So we have specified with this particular message, right? And the message will be hello Khaja, and this is what we call it as payload. So it will contain a lot of metadata. For now it is not required. We'll see when we go into the much complex scenarios. But now let's say what is the output. So output is the time at which we have greeted, right? So this is the output. So if you see here, what I specified here is that get me the output, echo the output, right? So it is echoing this output. So you can, if you come over here, expand this. So in this, there should be an output timestamp, right? So yeah, that timestamp is what it is outputting here as well. Okay. So this is the way that we can reuse a certain action. So if we want to use someone else's action, so this is how we can use. So someone else might have created an action. They'll be giving certain inputs for that action file uh, that needs to be passed, and then you'll be getting some certain output from that. So this is how you can capture. Okay, so this is how you can give input with, and this is how you can get output. So you don't need to echo every time. So sometimes what you need to do, what you might have to do is that you hit an endpoint, you get a token, and then you append the token to further request, right? Similar thing you can do this. Now, what exactly have we saved by doing this, right? So one second, let me open this. What we have saved by doing is that not writing this much of code. So instead of writing all this code, we have just written these 3 lines of code. So that is what the benefit of actions, right? Writing again, these are again templates. So if you want to see more actions, how many actions that are there, so what you can do is that you can search for GitHub Actions Marketplace. So you go to this, and there are tons of so there are 3000 plus actions. So let's say that you want to search for node action. So you just search node. So this one will set your node environment. This will give you the node version, right? And let's say that you want to search for JDK, right? So this will help you to set up JDK. You don't have to do anything. It will automatically, you just click on this, it will give you a couple of lines of code, right? So this is how it gives. So you can say uses, that's it. It will set up whatever the version that you want to set. Here we are setting it 9, version 9, but you can set any major version. Cool. So that is how we do. I think we have ran out of time. So GitHub checkout is something that I will quickly wrap it up. Okay. So similar to what we have seen here, the one very important action is checkout. Okay. So GitHub checkout, you can see that there are tons of information here. Okay. So let's create one more class. So sorry, one more job. So I'll say checkout demo, and I want to run this on Ubuntu as well. So for a namesake, I'll just give it Ubuntu 16.04. So what I'll do is that demo checkout. Okay. So what I'm going to do is that uh, I'll just first write run ls-la, which will output if there are any files that are present. Also before checkout. So this is during checkout. So what we need to do is that we can just say uses. we'll see. We'll see. I mean, we have already crossed 20 minutes, so we'll see how it goes. Okay. So we have checked out. Now the next thing is that so after checkout, let's see what is the result of running ls-le. So now typically what it will do is that when we say checkout, it is going to check out this all these files and folders inside this particular Ubuntu 16 machine. Okay, so that is what it should ideally do. So let's quickly do that. Let me commit. Yeah, it's good to write. I know that sometimes it could be really irritating to write those things, but yeah, it's important. Now let's go to actions. So we have, so far we have done a lot of things, right? And I'll show you a very interesting thing after we have run this job. So this one is what we are running. It has ran. So checkout demo is what we are interested inside, right? So before checkout, if you see, so we said ls-la, nothing, right? And then we did some checkout. So it will be doing a lot of things. Now after checkout, I'm just running ls-la, the same. So now you can see readme is there, GitHub right here, test.yaml and all this, right? So this is the beauty of reusing actions, right? If we have to write our own actions instead of this, what we could have written is that first I could have I should have written run git fetch and then some fetch, right? Then again we might have to run git uh, git checkout master or whatever, right? So all these things that we need to we have to do manually. So instead of that, we can just reuse the actions. In this case, checkout. Okay. So remember, we can do checkout based on tag. Right here we are using tag, but you can also uh, yeah, here version 2 I'm using. There is version 1 also, right? You can also do based on branches. So you have so many of these branches. So if you want to use the greatest and latest or play with no edge branches, you can do that. Or if you want to see based on the latest commit, right? So you can even go here, copy this particular commit ID, right? This commit ID, and you can place it instead of at the rate v2. So even that is also possible. So you got three options. Okay. So I told you that I'll be showing one very interesting thing, right? So I'm pretty sure my inbox might have filled by now because we have run so many things. So what I have not done, which I should have done here earlier, was that if you go to settings and go to notifications, so what you will see is that, okay, it will ask, oh my God, I think I forgot my password. Let's try it. Oh, I didn't forget. Okay. Yeah, not this one. You go to settings, notifications. You see that GitHub Actions. I said send me email and web, right? So what is that web? If you click here, these are the notifications. You see that all these notifications. Now my inbox would also be filled with all these notifications. So if I go there, yeah, after this session, I'll sit and clean up all this. You see that all these things we'll be getting in emails also. So instead of getting all these emails, if you want to get these alerts only when there is a failure, then you can set it up also. Send notifications for failed workflows only. Okay. So I think that would be a lot better than enabling continuously. Fine. I think oops, what happened? It's not working. System is frozen. Just a minute. Yeah, I think that was the last one. Yeah, I think we are done for. So this is a very basic things which we have discussed. Again, things can be as complex and as as big as possible that you can do based on your requirements. There are tons of things that you can do which we haven't discussed here. We can create environment variables. Here what we have did is that if you see both these jobs were running parallelly, that's the default behavior. We can even enable it to run sequentially also. Okay. uh, we want to run only once this particular one has run, only after that we want to run this. So in the case of a certain API, right? First we want to generate the token, and only after generating token we want to do a post request or a put request. Or in the case of, let's say, mobile testing. So for mobile testing using Appium, you want to run your test only when there is a certain instance of Appium driver available, right? You don't want to run before the Appium server is running. So you can do that as well. So there are tons and tons of use cases. So if you come across any use case, feel free to reach out to me. Drop a message or mail me or reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter and tell me this is the use case, and definitely I can help you guide on that use case, right? So I'm expecting actions to be a huge improvement in the area of DevOps, and I'm seeing this something that would really make the life of both developers and automation developers as well as the source code developers easy, right? So are the cost related details in this session? Oops, yeah, thanks Prakash for bringing that. Yeah, let me quickly go through this. Um, so this is the cost related to that, right? So here is what we are discussing about the product. So GitHub free accounts, GitHub Pro, GitHub free for organizations, GitHub Teams, Enterprise, so on and so forth. This is the storage capacity, and these are the minutes. So if you see, so let's see one of the emails. So let's see this one, right? The latest one that I have received. If you see, it has run only for 44 seconds, right? Pretty simple, 44 seconds. Like that, if you go here in billing, you will be getting 2000 free. 2000 free means that you can pretty much, you don't have to pay anything to start with, right? Unless you have huge builds that runs hours and hours, right? If it is for testing purposes, you can pretty much run, I don't think you'll be able to consume these 2000 minutes. Okay. But if you happen to consume everything, right? If you happen to consume everything, now the cost is as defined here. For Linux, per minute, you will be charged uh, 0.8 of a cent. right? Not even 1 cent, 0.8 cents. Mac operating system, so I would say is on a very high end. I wouldn't say very high, on a higher end, right? And Windows is half of Mac OS, right? Sorry, not even half, right? It's much cheaper, twice as Linux. So if you they have given a sample calculation also, which is very interesting. Let's say that you are using 5,000 minutes, 3,000 minutes on Windows and sorry, Linux, and 2,000 on Windows. So you'll be paying only $56, right? Pretty cheap compared to compared to maintaining our own systems, right? Maintaining our own hardwares, maintaining our own softwares. So instead of that, you get pretty much everything for $56. So they have given in terms of days and GBs as well. So you can go through this. Um, so this is I mean, the guide itself is the document is super exhaustive. No, I won't say super exhaustive, but pretty good documentation. It can be improved a lot as well. Yeah, obvious. Sauce Labs, it's completely different, right? So if you are talking about Sauce Labs, the alternative that the other day I was talking to a team called as Selenium Box. Okay, let me type that. So I would say if you want to get an on-prem alternative of Sauce Labs, Browser Stack, pcloudy, cross-browser testing and all this, then check that Selenium box. They are the developers who initially developed the Selenium grid. Thanks, Gayatri. Can I have global actions that can run for all repositories during checkout or for can you rephrase your question, Srinivas? I didn't get it. Yeah, exactly. Prakash, that is possible. Yes, you can use these GitHub Actions for Mac also. Yeah, you're most welcome. Cool. Any other questions before we wrap up the session? Okay. So in the next session, we are going to talk more detailed about some more information about GitHub. For us to create our own workflow and um, uh, create a project. So what we are going to do ultimately is that I know a little bit of React, so I'm going to create a simple React application, and then we are going to create a couple of branches, master and develop, and we'll create another feature branch, and we'll add a new feature inside that feature X branch, and then we'll push those changes to develop branch, which will trigger a chain. Okay, a chain in the sense we'll be writing a YAML file in such a way that once we push the changes from feature X branch to develop, it will automatically take care till it is pushed to master branch. From first, it will push to develop branch. It will do all the checks, and if it passes, it will merge into the develop branch, and then it will automatically trigger a push to master branch. Then the checks will be done. It will run all the tests. Once those tests are done, then all the code that is available in develop will be pushed to master branch. And not just that, it will also do a code a code comparison. So we'll be creating and pushing it to some sources. Okay, so which we are going to see later. And also we'll be creating a release as well. We'll be creating a release. If you go to GitHub Actions, let's say one of the actions, um, so I think I have closed. Yeah, if we go to checkout, so if you go to releases here, so you are going to see this information, right? So all these things we'll be automating. Okay, so we'll be automatically creating a release, we'll be automatically creating a tag, we'll automatically add assets, we'll automatically whatever the changes that we have done in that particular release, we can display it here itself. So lots and lots, and I mean, there is still tons of information that I would like to share. So hopefully, this is just a kickstart, and hope it's clear. Yes, AH, please go ahead. Yeah, that is what I was discussing, right? So whatever that we are, this was only an introduction session for GitHub Actions, because I'm not sure. I don't think most people might have heard about GitHub Actions, right? So that's the reason why I've spent quite a lot of time explaining even the minute details. And whatever that I have just explained is the workflow that we are going to do in the coming sessions, which will be very interesting. Okay, all right. I think we are good. So if there are no more questions, yeah. All right. See you later.